It occurs to me that I might have kind of a hillbilly Morpheus thing going today. So the question is it possible to talk about one of the most dissected and overanalyzed films of recent decades without just rehashing old points or getting it blocked for copyright issues? And can I cover not only why the right has embraced the terminology of the story, but the possibility that it's a right-wing story at its core? And can I do it without being called a far-right extremist by deliberately obtuse net wraiths? Let's find out. I should state up front that I didn't recognize The Matrix as a massive cultural touchstone at the time. In fact, I recall saying something along the lines of, in 25 years, The Matrix will be remembered mostly for a guy dodging bullets in slow motion. Yeah, that was Krugman levels of wrong. It's reached cultural fixture status. People talk about escaping the Matrix or being red-pilled, and even those who've never seen the movie know what they mean. I've heard it referred to as the first movie of the new millennium, thematically, if not quite temporally. And after a recent rewatch, it's even more on point than those who recognized it as something significant at the time could have understood. Though the third act is mostly fairy tale boilerplate, dawdle until the bad guys show up, revived by true love's kiss and all that. Gotta wrap it up somehow. Let's just get the red pill, blue pill thing out of the way right now so it's not skulking in the shadows waiting to clobber us with all its political baggage. Take the red pill and wake up to a hard truth, but it's the first step toward doing something about it. Or take the blue pill and remain in the comfortable bullshit illusion.
The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe.
Great concept. It's unfortunate that the color coding maps to American partisan politics. I know some red-pilled leftists, though they're not Democrats. There are absolutely blue-pilled Republicans, people buying into ideas that tell a comforting story that doesn't hold up to critical examination, but ideas that just happen to align with the red team in American politics. When I talk about red pill here, I mean it in the sense of Neo wanting to know the truth and then having to come to terms with it before he can prepare himself to fight it. And by blue pill, I mean like Cypher, who would rather embrace a comforting lie, absolved of any responsibility, just playing a part.
Like an actor.
I'm not talking about Republicans and Democrats.
This Major Bojan shit.
So after pulling us in with an action sequence, lots of gunplay, some wire work, Carrie-Anne Moss in a vinyl catsuit dropping cops, we get to Neo and a dump of clues about what's coming. The film is practically winking at us for the whole sequence, the close-up tapping the escape key, using a copy of Simulacra and Simulation as a hidden stash box. It's rapid-fire dropping hints. But it's really in Neo's workplace, the corporate cubicle-scape of the Metacortex Corporation, that it really tries to wake us up to what's coming. And of course, Neo fails to escape the corporate prison because really breaking out is scary as hell when you come face to face with it. Yet it captures that sense of being trapped that's endemic with modern life. If you've ever kept glancing at the clock, just waiting for the workday to end, you've felt it. But of course, the central idea of it is that the Matrix is a system of control, and all the people within that are not awakened to that reality, not red-pilled, are instruments of that system. Morpheus, rather heavy-handedly named for the god of sleep and dreams, flat out explains it.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
Recall the opening sequence, Trinity alone versus a bunch of cops, enforcers of the system. They can be completely replaced by agents, ceasing to be individual people entirely. It's a constant theme. And with increasingly more Americans believing that political violence is acceptable, the rise in racially motivated violence, and the idea of civil war in the US, UK, and even mainland Europe no longer completely relegated to the loony fringe, this idea of trying to save people who are trying to destroy you is increasingly relevant in contemporary politics. On one layer, you can make an argument that The Matrix is a heavily left-coded story. After all, it's about an oppressed and abused population fighting against a pervasive system that literally feeds on their energy. But it's also important to note that while Morpheus and his people aren't fighting to restore the old world in some straight-up reactionary way, they are trying to tear down the dehumanizing progress of the machines in favor of something more traditional and human.
Me and my brother Dozer were both 100% pure, old-fashioned, homegrown human, born free right here in the real world.
But either way you read it on that level, underneath the sticking it to the mechanical man Messiah story, there's something else happening. Let's look at the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar. They aren't just a bunch of friends hanging out. They have a definite hierarchy and social structure. But they see themselves as a cohesive unit. When they go into the Matrix, they aren't trying to destroy the people still plugged into it, but there is a definite hard line between us and them. They have different rules and expectations for their in-group than for those outside. The Nebuchadnezzar crew are a mixed lot ethnically, but they share a culture and common values. They're open to bringing in new people, notably Neo, but that doesn't mean that the Matrix pod people can be treated like part of the crew as a general rule. Internally, they have trust. Externally, they're defensive, militant even, because they know if they treated the outgroup like family, they'd quickly end up destroyed. They're a microcosm of classical liberalism in some ways. I've argued before, most notably in the video on District 9, that race is a social rather than biological classification. It's a program of sorts, a blue pill that lets those who take it feel comfortable in a simple narrative about the world, gives them a them to blame for problems that have much deeper roots, but it can also be a powerful element of social cohesion. And the red pill here is that, whether in terms of racial violence, partisan politics, anything really, if you are being targeted by an enemy that sees you as just part of a group, but you don't see yourself or them that way, you're going to get Agent Smith popping up next to you. However, that doesn't mean that simply accepting the premise and switching to that tribal mindset is the answer. Recognizing when someone sees you as just a representative of an enemy group is necessary, it's information. But to simply reciprocate can be the path to defeat. The information has to be used intelligently. So in terms of contemporary politics, saving the ideals of democracy, of universal human rights, of liberalism in essence, requires a recognition that those things are easily manipulated for illiberal ends. The immigration argument is a great current events example of this, and I know this is the part where those previously mentioned deliberately obtuse net rates come out. But the basic inescapable truth underlying it is that immigration without assimilation is just colonization.
Really became our civilization, which is, of course, what this is all about.
And it's on that level, knowing that something is deeply wrong in the world, but being bombarded with a lie, being manipulated, used, in some cases even replaced, that the Matrix resonates on the right. Across the Western world, millions of people are waking up like Neo in that pod. Everything they took for granted has fallen away. They realize that something is deeply, terribly wrong, and they don't know what to do about it. But they're far ahead of those people still plugged into the pods and feeding tubes. Some of them will be like Cypher. After seeing the truth, they'll just stick their heads back in the goo and pretend everything is grand. The blue pill is easy, whether it's the establishment's sanctioned story of white guilt or the controlled opposition white racialism. The red pill route is harder because it means you can't just become a Nazi and think you're the good guy. But you also have to face the reality that while America and Western Europe have built truly great and bountiful societies, as evidenced by people from all over the world trying to get in, part of what makes them so good is the openness that's being exploited to undermine them. It's not an intractable problem at all, but it is a delicate one to avoid destroying what is good in the process of trying to save it. But let's go back to the Nebuchadnezzar. Whether it's named for the first or second isn't specified, but if the latter especially, we're looking at a ship named after a king notable not only for his military exploits, but for rebuilding Babylon, which fits thematically. Though there's also that whole destroying Jerusalem thing, making it an ominous name for a ship operating out of a city calling itself Zion.
Zion. If the war was over tomorrow, Zion's where the party would be.
But I'm not going to riff on that much because the ending turns some of what I've already said upside down. The first film, I'm not looking at the Search for More Money sequels here. In this story, Neo's journey to become the One, and with him the rest of the Nebuchadnezzar's crew, slips into some blue pill territory because they don't bring down the Matrix, they exploit it. The fight happens inside its construct, according to its rules. the final shot of the film is not all the pods opening and the people waking up to the reality of having to build real lives in a broken world, but rather Neo flexing his new power as Goth Superman, which really might be the ultimate message, the real red pill of the film that transcends left and right. Oppressive systems seem much less oppressive if you are one of the people that can exploit it. Yeah, I'd like to pull out 2 MP5Ks, but I don't have those.